Hello and welcome to a demonstration of the new purchase order module for the Quality Improvement Planning tool. Today I'm going to walk you through this new piece of work that I'm just wrapping up on that should make our purchasing and processing of material requests a lot easier in the future. You saw a version of this that was just the material requests being processed on the back end as individual action items. This will actually allow you to combine them into a purchase order together. So what is the purchase order? The purchase order is a way to process the ordering of a material request. So the material request action item is where you define what you're actually wanting to get, and that ties the material to your goals. It ties it to the standard and your QIP and what you're working on. Where the purchase order comes in is that handles the back office processing of that order. And so it separates those two things out, from connecting it to your goals to connecting it to an order. Every material request action item has to have a purchase order, but a purchase order can combine multiple action items, multiple material requests into one if they are shipping to the same site. So if the requests are made by the same site or the same program, and if they're being purchased from the same vendor. So that's what defines a purchase order. It's for the same site, and the purchases are being made from the same vendor. It stores the processing history, so how it has changed hands among the various stakeholders: purchasing, central office, the quality manager, the site, you, the QI specialist. It tracks that, the decisions people made at those different points, the communications that happened there, and you can see that history there, and I'll be showing you that. So that's a quick overview of what the purchase order is. And now just to back up a little bit, I'm going to go back through the three core components of the QIP because to talk about how those are relevant to the purchase order. So starting here with the visit log, this one is not terribly relevant to the purchase order, but you can see your purchase orders and progress on them right from within the visit log context. So as a reminder, the visit log is a record of your visits to the program or your major check-ins with them that record the progress that's being made. You can see your purchase orders from within a visit log because you can see your goals and you can see your action items. So you can look at your purchase orders right from there if that's the main place that you work, is in the visit log. The goal, as a reminder, this is the goal is a collection of action items that are all working toward a common outcome. So the goal really connects the standards, connects your ratings to those action items, which allows the action items to really live as individual tasks. It also, the goal adds more of a narrative arc to your action items. It pulls them together and it shows the things you're doing, how your material requests, your kind of meat and potatoes action items, and your PD all work together toward a common goal. Now, a purchase order, to tie it to the goal, it can be created from within a goal because the first step of creating a purchase order is a material request action item, and those are created within goals. But a purchase order is not limited. It is not contained by a single goal. It can actually span material requests from multiple goals as long as they're from the same vendor and for the same site, the same program. Action items, again, so these are your specific concrete tasks that are tied to a single standard. There can be many of them in a goal. There can be many of them attached to an action item, but they're very well-defined tasks that you can check off and very concretely get done. They're a discrete task. The process and progress on a purchase order can be viewed through an action item. You'll get a snapshot of that. You'll see what that looks like. And again, more than one action item can be associated with a purchase order. So I just wanted to go back through and couch the purchase order in this context for you. So now I'm going to log in. I'm at the main PDI website. For now, this is how you will continue to get in through the dashboard. You'll have the login that I sent you. We are going to be moving this, the QIP, eventually to the Quality Stars New York domain. But for right now, I'm going to go in through the dashboard and go right in to the QIP. Now luckily my session remembers who I am. You guys don't have this option, but as an admin I can see everybody. But the first thing I want to do to make sure that this makes sense to you is I'm going to go into QIS mode. You guys will have this bar so that you can see what things look like from the site perspective, and QI managers will be able to see several perspectives too. As an admin I can see them all. Okay. So the easiest way to look at creating a new material request and then a purchase order is to jump right into the goals for my example center here that I stole from video. So I'm going to jump right into my goal manager. Again, I can view these goals from the visit log, from the ratings page, but this is the most direct way for me to show it to you now. So I've got my preset goals here, and I'm going to go in. We've got our action item tray where I can see my action items, and I've got my material action item tray. My material action items will appear in my all-encompassing action item tray, but if I want to see them in isolation or create a new material request, I'd go to the material request tray. And so I'm going to create a new one. And I'm going to just call it the material requested is kind of, that's the description of the action here. And I'm going to say the books we need. Now I'm not being very careful about tying these action items logically through the standards to what this goal is. Just for my examples, yours will be incredibly relevant to the goal, but for simplicity, I'm just using these goals that I have and putting kind of some dumb examples in here. C1, I want to get this done right away. This is the date by which I want to submit the purchase order that will start this material request being processed, because that's really the action that needs to be taken here. I need to submit this request. Purpose, these books will be fun and educational to read for the children and the staff. And I'm going to save this. Goal updated with the new material request. It's giving me a little message here, and now I can see in my materials tray, I now have this material request. It is also in my action items tray. Unlike this bread and butter action item, this action item has these two green bars. Why green? Green like money. I don't know. It's a simple little thing. Because to distinguish the purchase order, because there's money involved. Okay, so let me jump over to the material. I could do this in either one, but I'm going to do it here. So the next thing that I need to do, because I can't put this on a purchase order yet, it's telling me select the vendor before you add to a purchase order, because a purchase order is defined by a vendor and a site. So first I'm going to go in here. Now I could look at all the vendors if I needed to poke around. This will be a screen eventually where you can see all the approved vendors, what people have ordered from them, what you've ordered from them, if you have outstanding orders with that vendor. That page is not ready yet, or I would show it to you. You can also put in a new vendor that hasn't been approved yet. For this demo, I'm going to stick to approved vendors. And I'm going to jump right down to Becker School Supplies. These categories right now, these will have an impact in the end. Right now it's populated with ones that I made up. I'm going to get help from the QI managers to put in a real list here, but just for the sake of examples, I'm going to go in here. This code would be a code from the manufacturer if they have a specific code for this, like a ISBN number or something like that that's important for you to have. And I'm just going to call this book 1 for my example. And this is the kids version. I'm going to go ahead and get the large print option. I'm going to get 15 of these, so everybody's got one. The unit price on these is just $6 a pop. Now for my second line item, I want to get something for the staff. They're going to get the staff version of the book. This is kind of the teacher's guide. So book 1. Teacher's Guide. I'm going to get that with the additional online link. Only one, just for the one teacher. This one's a little pricier. Now I'm going to get another book for them. Book 102. Book. You can see I've done this. I've practiced a couple times. Okay, and I'm going to get the large print edition of this one too. Another 15 of these. and when you know it, they're the same price. Now you can see I'm not putting in subtotals here. That's gray. It's disabled. I cannot put anything in here because this will be automatically populated on the back end. The math will be done. Now, I want to get the teacher's guide for book 2, but I've only got 3 slots here. Am I going to have to create a new action item? No. We'll just add another row. You can literally add as many as you'd like here, as many as you need to be relevant to this exact standard, this exact action. Now remember, you can add multiple action items to a purchase order, so where it makes sense to break these up, break them up. But you can add as many rows as you need, as makes sense. So book staff 102, oops. Okay, and then book 2 teachers guide with online link. One of those, $20. All right, I've got my vendor here set up. I've got my line items. I'm going to save this puppy. Action item updated, in place. If I look back at my line items, everything's saved. This will allow me to delete them. You can see my subtotals are in here, and my item subtotals, the quantity times the unit price, and then the subtotal for the entire action item is here. And both these item subtotals and the subtotal for the whole action item will be checked when you submit the purchase order. QIM has some numbers back there to see if they want to take a second look at this before the purchase goes through. I don't think I'm actually going to break any of those thresholds here, but those will be adjusted as we go. So that's my vendor and line items. I've got that defined. And now that I have done that, now that I've picked a vendor, now I can add to a purchase order. It's changed to add to purchase order. So now we're in the new stuff, creating an actual purchase order. Open this up. I've got an explanation here that should help you out a little bit with the purchase orders. I am working on putting all the instructions into color coding. I haven't done it here, but to help identify those. But hopefully this is helpful. You can give me feedback on that. So create a new purchase order for vendor Becker School Supplies. That's my only option right now because I have no purchase orders in existence yet. Let me just go ahead and create that. New purchase order. This creates my purchase order and it updates the action item so that that action item knows what purchase order it is a part of. Here how do you know this is a purchase order visually? Well, it's got this thick black border, thick borders between everything to kind of look like an old school financial form that you're filling out. Hopefully that's a little visual indication of where you're at. Things can start to look alike when everything's a rectangle. It gives you your vendor, gives you your site, gives you the QI specialist, who was the specialist for this site when this request was made, the site assignee, meaning the person at the site. Right now I'm both, unfortunately. Maybe I should have switched that. So I'm the site representative and the QIS on this. And we're going to add more information here, the director contact information and things like that, especially when purchasing is looking at it so they can reach out to follow up. So we'll have the QI specialist contact information and the site assignee, which will most likely be the director or somebody, their contact information here too. And next I have the current status. It's in prepare request, so this purchase order is being prepared for sending out. This is who's working on it. This is who put it in that status, so I created it. This is my role. This is when I did it. And this is the next step that needs to be taken. I need to complete and submit the request. Who needs to do that? Either the site or the QI specialist. So if it's the site and they submit, that will go to you, the QI specialist, to look it over before you send it to purchasing. Or you can just do it without them and then you skip that step. If you do it in person with them, you can just submit it as you. Then it goes straight to your QI manager if it needs additional approval, or right to purchasing. So that's the basic information for this PO. But let me look at my item list and processing. So I've got that same item list that I saw on the action item, those 4 items set up just this way. Purchasing will have an opportunity to put in a final unit price and final subtotal if it's different from what you had entered, if there's some discount or something else. And then you have the opportunity here to split up these costs. I'll just go 50-50 on this. Actually, I won't fill this out because we're going to do something else, but I'll show you these. This is where I can divide up the costs. This is where I can put the link to my cart. If I If the vendor allows you to share a link to the cart, which makes it super convenient to do these orders, you can put the URL right in there, grab it from your browser and pop it in there, or whatever the sharing link they give you. And then upload cart image. So I could either just browse through my files, or I can drag and drop a file onto this dashed box. That'll give you the cart image or a PDF. Putting in, I'll have to find out for you guys how exactly do that. We can make adjustments to what the file should be, the file type. And then I could submit the request. But I'm not quite ready yet. I want to add some things to this. But let me jump over. This is the item list and processing tab. Let me jump over to my action item tray for this purchase order. Now, the goal, if I closed my purchase order, I'm back on the goal screen. Sorry if it's a little disorienting the first few times, but I'm on the goal screen. I have my material. Now that I've created this purchase order, it tells me the status of that purchase order. If you'll remember before, it just said add to. Now, as this purchase order goes through the process, I will see those right on the action item that belongs to that purchase order, the status of the purchase order. So I have my material request tray on my goal that shows me my action items. Similarly, I can see a tray of the action items associated with this purchase order, and that distinction will become important when we add another action item to this purchase order. In this tray, I have a different option. I can remove the action item from the purchase order if I no longer want this action item to be part of the order. If this is the one that's requiring approval and it's going to be complex and hold up my other orders, I could take it off for now and put it on a different purchase order. That's an option there. This is where I can actually adjust the line items too. And as I adjust these, if I took any off or changed any pricing and changed them, it would also change what appears on this tab. Now the question may arise, well, what's the point in having the line items here and also on the action item? Same list. Seems like a waste. Well, the difference is when I create and add a second action item. So I'm going to go down to my second goal here. Again, I'm being really arbitrary in how I'm creating these goals. You'll just have to bear with me. And this is where I'm going to get some lamps. Reading lamps for the reading area. Now these are coming from, well, you'll see. So, okay. Not a standards expert. I need to get this one out the door right away too. You know what? I'm going to change the assignee to Stephanie. She's the one in charge of this action item. And purpose, these lamps will really help illuminate the books and draw the kids' focus to what they are reading. All right, I'm going to save this request. Now in this goal, in my reading area overhaul goal, I've also got a material request in here. Again, I need to select the vendor before adding a purchase order. So I'm going to go into my vendor and line items. Actually, this time, let's go in. I'm going to select the same vendor because I want this on the same purchase order. Furniture, again, these categories may change. LMP 5Z1, because this is the 5Z1 model. 5Z1. I'm making this up. Reading lamp. Oops. I want this to be medium, whatever that means. Let's get 3 of these, and these are kind of pricey. All right. Okay, I'm just going to do one item there for illustrative purposes. We won't go nuts. Okay, action item updated. Now I can add it to a purchase order now that I've defined the vendor. And here we go. Now I have 2 options. I can do a new purchase order for Becker School Supplies if I wanted this to be on a separate purchase order, which there might be reasons I would want to do that if one of them needs to be processed first. And then my other option here is to add it to my existing Becker School Supplies purchase order that was created today at 12:16 p.m. That that purchase order has 4 associated line items and 1 associated action item with it already. Yes, that looks like the one I want to add to, but let me preview it real quick just in case. Oh yeah, this is the order I wanted this to go with. So I'm going to go ahead and select that one. And it opens it up for me again, tells me my action item is updated, and lo and behold, this action item has, or this purchase order now has 2 associated action items. These 2 are in the same tray. They are not in the same goal. This goal has 1 material request. This goal has 1 material request. But when I go down to one of those action items and I pop open and look at the purchase order, these 2 action items are living together on this purchase order, even though they're on different goals. So there you see, the purchase order is collecting together things for processing purchasing. The goals are for tying them together logically to the standards in your plan. 2 different ways of grouping action items. So, and if I look over at my item list and processing, now I've got my 4 list items from my first action item, my 1 from my other action item, all gathered together, all subtotaled together. So that's the power of the purchase order. It pulls them all together into one. I could still see this list of 4 books and my lamps separately, and that's where I would go if I needed to change those items. But if I want to process them, I get to see them all here together and what they add up to. Now I'm going to divide up my costs. 300 to Quality Stars, thank you very much. $70 to the program. Cart link, if I had one, I would pop it in there, the URL. Now I am going to upload a cart image. I'm just going to pop in a JPEG. I think PDFs may be the way we end up doing this, but I'm just going to throw in a JPEG for now. Now, I'm not quite ready to submit this because I have a question about it. So before I submit, I'm just going to save all the work I've done. And I am actually going to leave a comment here. So it's telling me this is going to stay in the same status. I'm not changing the status. I'm just saving my progress and leaving myself a note. Do we need 1 more lamp? Check with Stephanie about how many lamps we actually need. There is some question. Okay, and I'm going to save this. Now it's telling me my purchase order was updated. The goal related to those action items was updated also. Now I'm going to look into my process history and notes, the final tab of the purchase order. What do we have here? It tells me when my purchase order was created, who did it, the date and time, and it's also giving me another piece of the story. My communication, Tuesday, 7/9/12/27. I made the comment here, do we need 1 more lamp? Check with Stephanie about how many lamps we actually need. There is some question. So this is where you start to see the communications and the process history. Hopefully that's starting to take us out of Zendesk, take us out of these spreadsheets, and really all the communications can live here. You can add those notes at any stage of the process if you need to communicate about this. And in the future, we'll have a way where you can directly target a question at a specific individual. Right now, that note will show up for anybody for whom the ball is in their court in terms of processing this. And I'll show you what that means. All right. So the ball is in my court right now as a quality improvement specialist to complete and submit this. I've got my image. This is the image I uploaded. Somebody needs to take a look at it more detailed. They can. That would be my cart image. Sorry, I should have a better example for you. Now, I can submit this request, and when I click that, it does give me a chance to look over. This is no longer exactly true, but it gives me some hints there. Same thing with save add note. It lets me know what I'm about to do, so you do have a chance to back out. So right now, let me see. I'm going to go ahead and submit this. I'm not going to add a comment, just going to submit it. Purchase order updated. Now look in my processing history. It tells me when this purchase order was submitted. It was moved into submitted purchasing. And then it did the purchase order total price triggered review notification. Now there are two things that can happen when you submit something. Either it's stopped for approval for the QIMs at one level. At a lower level, it just lets the QIMs know they might want to take a look at it while purchasing is processing it. So that's what happened here. So that's in the process history. Because of the amount that I put in, it's triggering it. Now I put these barriers very low just for the purpose of testing, but we'll be setting those as we go. Okay, so let's take a look at what has happened here. The request was submitted by me. It says I'm an admin. Right now I'm acting as a quality improvement specialist, but it knows that deep down I'm an admin on this date. So that's when I took this action. Next, somebody needs to process, purchasing needs to process this. So that's the next step for this purchase order. If I look down, I no longer have the option to do much. I could pull it out of rotation. If I want to take it back away from processing because I want to put it on hold, I can do that if I want to. I would have to give some reasons and put in some comments. Or I could cancel the request if I really didn't think I was going to come back to this one. But for right now, I'm going to jump up here. I'm going to make myself into a QIM. Or rather, I'm going to make myself into purchasing. So now I've become purchasing. This is not something you would do, but just so you know what happens on the other end. Purchasing would have a list where they just look at these, but since I'm on the goal screen, I'm just going to stay here. This action item tells me that its purchase order that it is being processed with is in that purchasing needs to process it. That's the status right now of this purchase order. And since I am purchasing, when I go in here, I've got different options. I can put in order number, purchase order, invoice number. I can update this final pricing here. And then, you know what? I don't quite like this. I need a little more information. So I am actually going to send this back for revision. I'm going to say the cart image was not adequate. You put in some random image here. That doesn't help me. Funds identified, let's say, and other. You know what? I'm going to check one more just for fun. These reasons will maybe be revised in the future, but these are in pretty good shape. I'm just going to say, can you take a second look at this? The cart image wasn't clear, and I think cut off some of the items. Let me know if you need help taking screenshots. Okay. Also, are you sure those are the right lamps? Update that request. Purchase order updated. Now I look in the processing notes again. Purchasing, well, it's me always, but this would say purchasing, someone from purchasing. Purchase order moved to purchasing, send back. The cart image was missing and inadequate, so you get a big bulleted list of the reasons here. And then can you take a second look at this? The cart image wasn't clear, and I think cut off some of the items. Let me know if you need help taking screenshots. I'll see you sure those are the right lamps. So my comment is in here in the life cycle of this PO. So now, since the ball is back in the QI specialist court to look over this and resubmit it, review, revise, and resubmit request. Who should do that? The site or the QIS? Let me jump this open. You see that again. The next step for this PO. I'm going to go in. Oh, yeah, that's right. I actually wanted the I want to resubmit this right now. I've made my changes. Make sure those changes can be made. Might have a setting wrong, but let me just submit this request again. I looked at the processing history. I saw the notes that they put, and I can see why it was sent back to me. Oh, right. Go into my action item, and this is where I can make changes. All I needed was the 2Z1, and those are only $20. She was right. I could have gone a cheaper way. Now I'm going to save this change. Now my purchase order is updated and my items are updated. I update them on the action item itself. Now I'm going to resubmit. Hope I found a cheaper lamp. You were right. This is the one we had been looking at. Thanks. Good catch. Okay. So now as a quality improvement specialist, I've put that in. Okay. It still triggered the notification, so that that was added into the commentary on the back end to let me know that it was triggered still when I resubmitted it, but it also has my comments here. Okay. So we're really building a history of what happened here, and comments could be flying back and forth at any point. Okay. So now I'm going to jump back in as purchasing. And I like what you've done. Oh, what's the note? Okay, they did change it. Oh, yes, I see. Yes, the total's changed. Let me just adjust these to reflect the new price breakdown. Good, good. They fixed the image. Let's just say they did. Put in an order number. Put in a purchase order number. Put in an invoice number. All that back office stuff. And you did a good job. I'm going to process this. Update request. Okay. Good to go. Now that purchasing has sent it through, the next step is to confirm the receipt of materials. So we're really closing the loop on this purchase order here. So it is now in the site or QIS's court to do something with this. You need to show purchasing that you actually got the materials or that you didn't. So let me switch back to being a QI specialist. Jump into my materials tray where I know one of the materials are for this purchase order. You'll have a list of all your active purchase orders on one screen where you'll be able to deal with those. But I'm just doing this here because this is where I've done most of my testing and things are in the best shape. And go in here. This was purchased. My cart image, everything's sitting here. A lot of these are read-only that I can't change at this point because the purchase has already gone through. But now I could say the materials were received and everything was fine. I'd upload my receipt image here. Or I could say the materials were received, but there was a problem with them, so I need to prove I received it, so I still put in my receipt image just like I would if everything went swimmingly. But here I'm putting in my issue image. If something was broken or wet or wasn't what I was looking for or some things were missing, I'd put in an image that would help there, and I would identify those things that went wrong and leave a note. Or I could say materials were not received. It's been 3 weeks. It's been a month. It's been whatever period it should have taken for shipping since the shipping date or since the purchase date, and I still haven't gotten it. So this will signal purchasing to reinvestigate what's going on here. They might call the vendor and find out. Or you could call the vendor. You put it there and not received, so that goes into the history, and then you can look into it, see what happened. But let's just say for now, let's close the loop on this. Put in a receipt image. Let's see if okay, found my receipt image, and I'm going to update the request. And now we can see I've got the whole life cycle from when I created it to the question I had for somebody to purchasing, to submitting it, to purchasing, sending it back, to me submitting it again, to purchase ordering, purchasing it, the purchasing team, and then me saying that I received it as a quality improvement specialist. So we can look back at this purchase order and see everything that happened right here. And what was ordered, what categories they were in. We got lots of great data about this purchase order. All right, so that is the purchase order. And down here you can see these can be added at any time after if we still need to add those remaining receipt images and things. All right, so as you can see, the purchase order, it gathers together multiple action items even if they're on different goals. In the item list and process, it pulls together all the items from those various action items into one order as long as they're with the same vendor and for the same site. And this tracks the communication and the process flow between all the teams. Now these, various of these notifications, as well as showing up here, will also appear on your various dashboards. The dashboard for the site that tracks everything going on with that site. It will also go on your QIS dashboard that tracks all of your activities for all your sites. Notifications, if you submit to purchasing, that'll show up on purchasing's dashboard and their list of things to do. And so it manages everything everybody needs to see to keep abreast of what's going on with these purchase orders. All right, I hope that's helpful, and I hope it's what you were expecting and what you were looking for when we had our great discussion in April. And I will see you in another video again soon.